to my channel. I'm just doing a really quick video here because I was thinking to myself, every celebration and every month and Halloween, Christmas, whatever, I always do a display on this table. And there's been nothing on this table, and I thought to myself, I'm going to do a Black History Month display. So I'm going to show you how I did it. So we'll start at the top of the mirror here. I bought this scarf from Michael's. They had the most gorgeous Black History Month display, and that African print scarf was there, as was this headband. And I'm using this headband to keep open this book, which is, I'm not even gonna, well, let me show you. It is from 1920, and it's a hymn book, and it is in unbelievable condition. And I've got it open to Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory, because that was a very strong song during the Civil War. And as we know, the Civil War, the North was fighting the South to try to free the slaves and the emancipation of the slaves. So that's why that is open. This one here is a picture of a woman who was obviously hired as a domestic, and it was displayed in the Century of Black Photographers in the Baltimore Museum of Art. And it doesn't say what year, it says June 11th to August 7th, but I love this picture, I really do. So I've got that just leaning against the American flag. And then at the bottom here, I have just 3 placemats of the same kind of to make a table runner. Running interspersed here are some salad spoons and tools my mother brought back from Africa. So that one is a giraffe, and this is its mate, because I don't want to use them in salads because they're so beautiful. This knife is an African warrior, as well as this one is a fork, and that one's a spoon. And right in front of us, we have framed the Jim Crow laws, and these laws were named for a 19th century black minstrel show character, so he wasn't even a real person, starting in the 1800s, and these laws were enforced segregation throughout the South, creating 2 worlds, one black and the other white. And it's got here, it's cut off a little bit, but this is buses, a passenger station in the state of operated by motor transportation companies shall have separate waiting rooms or space and separate something windows for white and colored races, because they called everyone colored. It is required by law under penalty of fine of $5 to $25 that white and Negro passengers must occupy the respective space or seats indicated by the signs in the vehicle. So most times they would have to sit in the back of the bus. And it just goes on about restaurants, education, intermarriage, the marriage of Caucasian blood with Negro or Mongolian, Malay or Hindu shall be null and void. And it has a state that these laws were in place. That was Arizona. The restaurant was Alabama. No colored barbers shall serve as a barber to white women or girls. That was Georgia. The officer in charge shall not bury or allow to be buried any colored person upon ground set apart and used for the burial of white persons. And the same with the circus tickets. People should be seated 25 feet apart, and so on and so forth. And ridiculousness, you know? But it is part of history. But what is really interesting is look when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is when this was ended. 1964. I mean, that isn't even, I was like, how old was I? 13, 14 years old. So this all took place in our lifetime. So it's really important to remember this stuff because we don't want it to happen again. And then on here, I have the inaugural speech that Maya Angelou said to when Clinton was inaugurated. And it was given to this, my aunt, I think. And it's the most gorgeous, beautiful speech on the Pulse of the Morning. It's beautiful. So that's there. And in here I have cotton, which anybody knows Black history, cotton was, and tobacco was one of the harvests that slaves were used to pick for their slave owners. And so I have this picture here that I painted, and it says fish are jumping and the cotton is high, because that's a Negro spiritual, and he's got his fish in his hand. It's very mixed media, no faces. It's a lot of texture. And Richard has painted for me many years ago this family on their way to harvest their cotton and or tobacco. And this picture is always in the front of our house, and it always reminds me of how far we have come and what our ancestors had to do for us to live free in our own beautiful home, you know. And then that African mud cloth is always hanging there. But this is my Black History Month display. So I've lit the candles on here, but before I turn the light out so you can see how beautiful it is, I added a couple more things. I added this portrait here of Bessie Coleman, who was the first Black woman pilot. And there's a sample of her handwriting. And then the USA has commemorated her in a stamp. And the interesting thing about Bessie Coleman, she was Richard's great auntie, his grandfather's sister. So that's really cool. His mom's last name is Coleman. And then I added the Everyday Ubuntu book, written by Archbishop Desmond Tutu's granddaughter. And it's basically telling you how to live better together the African way. It kind of reminds me of the Four Agreements. It's really a beautiful read. So there is my display. And I'm going to turn the light out. And you can see how it looks in the night light. Isn't that nice? Richard said he absolutely loves it. It's his most favorite display. So there you go. So everybody, read up about Black history if you don't already know. Do a little research. In Canadian schools, unfortunately, they don't teach a lot about American history and slavery, but I do believe they do in American schools. At least I hope they do. And yeah, this is just my little entryway, and I want to show this to my grandsons and explain all this stuff to them too. So happy Black History Month. See you next time. Bye.